certainly if I were the U.S. attorney prosecuting this case, I would recommend probation. First of all, you have to remember the origins of this case come from a completely illegitimate Mueller investigation, which is illegal from its inception as a result of all the illegal FISA warrants. So you have to take that into consideration as a matter of public policy. In addition, Roger Stone is 67 years old. He has no criminal record. Nothing that he did in this case warrants a jail term.
Joining me now is Joseph DiGenova. He is a former U.S. District Attorney for Washington, D.C. Joe, thanks for being here with us. As you know, it's been a very, very busy news week. Right now, all of the conversation is swirling around Roger Stone. He's a longtime friend of President Donald Trump and associate, if you will. So the Justice Department officials were reportedly shocked by the federal prosecutor's recommendation that Roger Stone served 9 years behind bars. Now, the DOJ wants to do a revised recommendation. We don't know exactly what sentence Roger Stone will receive, what reduced sentence he could possibly receive. What would you recommend? He was slapped with process charges.
I would, certainly if I were the U.S. attorney prosecuting this case, I would recommend probation. First of all, you have to remember the origins of this case come from a completely illegitimate Mueller investigation, which is illegal from its inception as a result of all the illegal FISA warrants. So you have to take that into consideration as a matter of public policy. In addition, Roger Stone is 67 years old. He has no criminal record. Nothing that he did in this case warrants a jail term. He's gone through the ignominious thing of a trial, public embarrassment, spending huge sums of money, practically bankrupting himself on attorneys. I don't think he should get any jail time at all.
Yeah, so Roger Stone didn't collude with any Russians, but in November he was found guilty of all 7 counts, including making false statements, witness tampering, and obstruction of a congressional probe.
Yeah, well, this is a setup by the Mueller people. They knew from day one, from the setup of the investigation, that there was no Russian collusion. Everybody mustn't lose sight of the fact that the Stone case is a sidebar. The main event here is the fact that Mueller was purposely set up and appointed to go after the President of the United States. They were going to do anything they could to get Donald Trump. And the brilliant thing that Trump's lawyers did was that they did not allow him to be interviewed by the federal prosecutors in the investigation of him. Because if they had, they would have accused the president of perjury, and then that's what the impeachment would have been about. It would have been about perjury. But as far as this entire operation goes, this was an illegal investigation from the beginning, improperly founded by Rod Rosenstein, carried out dutifully by Bob Mueller, and conducted like a maestro by Andrew Weissman. Just one thing, just remember what they did to Roger Stone. No criminal record. He's not a gangster. He's not a terrorist. He's not organized crime. In the middle of the night, they go to his house with 26 federal agents, all armed with weapons, automatic weapons, flak jackets. They have armored vehicles. There are boats behind his house because he lives on a body of water, apparently. They bring CNN to film the embarrassment of him taken out the front door. This was in terrorem prosecution by Mueller and Weissman. It was a disgrace. He should get no prison sentence just because of that.
Well, they made claims that they didn't tip off CNN, but it was pretty convenient that CNN was sitting there with the whole camera crew at the exact right time. And the way that you described it, I went back and I looked at the El Chapo raid footage, and Roger Stone got it worse than El Chapo.
Yeah, well, see, I don't believe them when they said CNN wasn't tipped off. I know CNN says they weren't, but why would I believe CNN about anything? But Mueller's people just lied through their teeth about everything, including in courtroom, in documents. It's just an outrageous performance by the special prosecutor, Bob Mueller, and Andrew Weissman. So they're not entitled to any belief whatsoever. Truth is, Roger Stone never should have been prosecuted.
And some are calling on President Trump to pardon Roger Stone. Do you think that would be appropriate?
Well, I don't. Let's put it this way. Suppose Amy Berman Jackson gives Roger Stone a prison sentence. I think the president would probably commute his sentence. He wouldn't pardon him. He would just say, no, he's not going to prison, because he's only in this problem, Roger Stone, because they wanted to get me Donald Trump, and I don't think that should happen. He would probably commute his sentence. I don't think he would pardon him.
We saw that 4 federal prosecutors with the U.S. Attorney's Office withdrew from Roger Stone's case on Tuesday. What do you make of this? Is this unprecedented? And why would these prosecutors resign?
It's highly unusual. I've never heard of anything like it. They did it because they wanted to do a political gesture. They wanted to basically tell the Attorney General and the President of the United States to go to hell. The problem with these 4 assistant United States attorneys is they've forgotten something. They aren't the bosses. They have an assistant U.S. attorney in front of their name because they are assistants. They're not the U.S. attorney. They're not the Attorney General. They're not the President of the United States. It's not their decision. They work for people. They're supervised by the Attorney General. That's why they submitted papers to the Justice Department to let them know what their recommendation was going to be. And that's why the department said, no, that's not what your recommendation is going to be. And apparently they may have even lied to the department. There's a couple of news stories that the DOJ officials believe that they were misled by what was told to them by these 4 prosecutors. But at any rate, they have, one of them has resigned from the government. He's no longer a prosecutor. The other 3 have simply resigned from the case and going back to their regular positions as assistant United States attorney. But I'll tell you something. If I were the United States attorney in Baltimore and the U.S. Attorney's Office in D.C., where I used to be the boss, I wouldn't want any of those 3 people in my office. I'd tell them to go look for another job.
President Trump doesn't seem too pleased. He says, who are the 4 prosecutors? Mueller people who cut and ran after being exposed for recommending a ridiculous 9-year prison sentence to a man that got caught up in an investigation that was illegal. The Mueller scam and shouldn't have ever been started. 13 angry Democrats. I don't know if you saw this on Twitter or not. How do you react to that?
I did, and I agree with the president 100%. And for all of this whining about the president shouldn't say this and shouldn't interfere. The president was illegally investigated for 3 years in an effort to remove him from office. They set him up while he was a candidate. They investigated him after he was elected and before he was sworn in. They jacked up the investigation after he was sworn in as president of the United States. And he's supposed to just simply sit there and take all of this illegal conduct. Just remember, the senior officials at the FBI have all been fired, resigned, transferred, out of work, or whatever. We know that they corrupted the FISA process in order to get the president of the United States. They tried to ruin the life of Carter Page. I don't want to hear anything. I think the president has the right to complain until the cows come home.
I want to shift gears here for a second. Axios is reporting that Trump is withdrawing his nomination of former U.S. Attorney for D.C. Jesse Liu to serve as the Treasury Department's Undersecretary for Terrorism and Financial Crimes. Now, Liu oversaw the Mueller spin-off cases of Manafort, Stone, and Flynn.
I'm not surprised that he withdrew the nomination after he heard about the sentence that was being recommended by the people that used to work for her. She was obviously aware that that was what they were going to do. He simply lost confidence in her. He did not trust her. She was going to be given one of the most senior law enforcement jobs in the government, running money laundering, foreign corrupt transactions, the financial center of the Treasury Department, which does all the suspicious financial transactions reviews. He lost confidence in her. There was no way he was going to have her nomination go forward, and I think he did the right thing. She clearly lacked some judgment in all of these things. I just can't figure out what it is she was doing that she put herself in this position to allow this type of thing to go forward from these 4 assistant U.S. attorneys. If you're a good U.S. attorney, you sit down and you say, what's your basis for 7 to 9 years? Just tell me what it is. There's no way you can explain 7 to 9 years to a seasoned U.S. attorney on the facts of this case. Probation is what this case is about.
What about her reputation? Why was she even considered for this role in the first place?
I have never understood it. I have never understood why she was U.S. attorney. I've never understood why she was going to be promoted to the Treasury Department. She obviously has a friend, somebody in personnel at the White House.
Rudy Giuliani. So apparently the U.S. Attorney's Office is going to start reviewing some of the alleged evidence that he's collected from Ukraine against the Bidens or anywhere else he's collected evidence. Is this a good move? And can we trust the Ukrainians or any of this so-called evidence that's being provided to Giuliani?
Well, first of all Rudy ever wanted was to have the United States government look at the evidence. He said, I've gone over, I've interviewed all these people, I've done it, through Skyping, I've talked to them on the phone. He finally went to Ukraine and interviewed a lot of these people, took sworn depositions, got affidavits from them, took it back and said, I'd like to give this information to the United States government Justice Department. Now, for a long time, the people in the Justice Department didn't want it. Why? I cannot tell you. I thought it was bizarre that they wouldn't want to look at this information. But then the impeachment happened. And the impeachment established beyond any doubt that the Bidens, both father and son, were engaged in activity in Ukraine that doesn't meet the smell test. Absolutely doesn't meet the smell test. We also know that the Obama administration was deeply concerned about the Biden family activities because they had meetings on it in the White House and at the State Department. People were objecting to it. They said, you got to stop this if you're going to make Biden the point man on Ukraine. So now Rudy gathers this information, all of which, as far as I'm concerned, is presumptively valid. If people want to question it, that's why we have an FBI. That's why we have a Justice Department. So the U.S. Attorney's Office in Pittsburgh is now going to review this information. I understand the U.S. Attorney there and his principal assistant are very good people, very serious people, very professional. I assume the evidence will be looked at. I assume Rudy has already met with them and that they're going over his material and they will receive it and evaluate it professionally. That's their job, to determine whether or not it's believable.
Yeah, I mean, certainly I don't see why people wouldn't want to see this evidence. And, as you're saying, we have these government agencies that can verify whether it's, real or not. And of course, you do have to be careful and keep in mind that there are motivations and, the cross currents is what it's been described as. So it's important to, make sure that these are legitimate documents and everything else.
I don't have a problem with that, and I'm sure the government wouldn't do anything until it was sure that these documents were valid. I know they're valid in terms, I'm sure whatever Rudy got, he's giving them, and he got it in an appropriate way. And the question now is, what do they want to do with this information? And that's up to them.
Absolutely. In a recent interview, it was over the weekend on Justice with Judge Jeanine on Fox News, Senator Lindsey Graham said that Barr, quote, has a process for the Biden probe. And he also went on to say that Russian investigators are going to jail. Do you believe this?
Well, I know that Barr does have a process because he said so. And now we see it working out through the U.S. Attorney's Office in Pittsburgh. I think what Barr is trying to do is keep the Ukraine stuff out of Main Justice until it's had a chance to be evaluated by a serious prosecutor who has nothing to do with Main Justice. And that's a good job for a U.S. attorney like the guy in Pittsburgh. Now, are people involved in the Russia investigation of the president going to go to jail? I think that's your question, like FBI officials, DOJ officials.
Well, a lot of them lied under oath.
It's pretty clear that Clapper lied, Brennan lied under oath, Clapper lied under oath, Comey lied under oath. The list is endless of DOJ and FBI people from the Obama administration who lied under oath. Will any of them go to jail? I doubt it very much. Will any of them be charged? Perhaps. But they should be accountable, and that's what Durham is doing. And Durham didn't impanel a grand jury because he's not going to charge anybody. He impaneled a grand jury because he believes he has enough evidence to charge someone or some group of people, and I expect that to happen by the spring.
Yeah, I'm not holding my breath, but because at this point right now, it seems like, if you're in Trump's inner circle or the Trump orbit or a Trump supporter, you get the book thrown at you. There's a two-tier justice system. And then everyone else who's anti-Trump or, with the establishment Democrats, they seem to escape. They're above the law, it seems like.
Well, there's no doubt about that. I mean, there is, in fact, a double standard. Look at what James Comey did when he exonerated Hillary Clinton. She was guilty as hell. She had violated multiple federal statutes. She had committed multiple felonies. She had conspired with people on her staff, with personal lawyers, with government lawyers to violate federal classified information and espionage laws. She got off scot-free because James Comey wanted something from her when she became president of the United States, and he wanted to help her become president of the United States. Of course, he was so bizarre and undistinguished in the way that he carried it out that he actually hurt her effort to become president of the United States because he's a sociopath. I mean, Comey is a nutcase. All you have to do is watch him on television. He's a guy who really needs a straitjacket, not a checkered coat. But when all is said and done, the illegitimacy of everything that went to get Donald Trump is now falling down. The walls are not closing in on Donald Trump anymore. They're closing in on all these other people. And here's the sad part. The Democrats, who used to be the party of so-called good government, have conspired with the people in the mainstream media to hurt this president and to hurt the country. And that the impeachment process was the latest example of how they have harmed this country. I expect nothing from the Democrats on the Hill. I think they've become so corrupted by their thirst for power that nothing is ever going to deter them. They're going to continue this nonsense of going after the president. But I hope that some people go to prison, and I hope that some people get indicted, because I want that process. That's part of a vindication of the president, and it should happen.
So, Joe, the White House has apparently identified the Trump administration official behind the anonymous tell-all book and the critical New York Times opinion piece. You may know something about it. You did a recent interview saying that you knew a little bit more about it than everyone else. Are you willing to share anything with us?
Well, I can tell you that I was at a dinner with a senior U.S. official last week. And in the course of that dinner, when we were discussing the impeachment, because the impeachment had not occurred yet. The vote on the impeachment had, rather, the acquittal had not occurred yet. And we were discussing that. And this person volunteered that, oh, by the way, we were discussing Vindman and his treacherous conduct, his insubordination, his court-martialable conduct while he was on the White House staff at the NSC, that they had identified. The person said, by the way, we have also identified anonymous. We know who the person is, and that's being worked on by the White House. I'm not going to tell you the name that I was given, because I think it's unfair to that person if it happens to be the wrong name. I have every reason to believe, however, that it is the correct name.
What's with these people that work in the White House who feel the need to leak? Like, if you don't like this administration, if you don't like the president, why serve?
Well, because they hate the president. This is all about hate. The Democrats hate the president. The people who were the turncoats in the NSC, who were holdovers from the Obama administration, hate this president. They conspired to ruin him from the day he took office. Anyone who served on the NSC, like Vindman and others, who decided they were going to look for the moment to try and take him down, I think those people are evil. I think they never should have been in the White House. I blame the White House Personnel Office. I blame McMaster's. I think McMaster's was a horrible national security advisor. He was told by multiple people on the Trump team that the NSC was a viper's nest of corrupt and disloyal people. He wouldn't do anything about it. One of the best things that ever happened is the president fired McMaster's. McMaster's was a disaster. And if it hadn't been for McMaster's, the president never would have been impeached.
Joe, thank you for your insight. We really appreciate it.
Anytime. Thank you.